All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I know that we have a lot to cover today, and I do not want to keep y'all past the scheduled time that we have, so we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining us for the kickoff session of our June LEED Green Associate Exam Prep. My name is Felicia Fuller, and I will be your instructor for today's session. So before we begin, just a couple of things I want to go over. Today's session is set up as a Zoom meeting, meaning that if you feel comfortable, you can turn on your camera and you can unmute your microphone when I open the floor for questions. You can also enter any questions or comments in the chat panel. I will keep my eye on it throughout the session. It can be sometimes a little bit tricky to present and keep your eye on the chat. So I will take designated breaks throughout the session just so that I can check that. And if I don't get to your question or comment right away, I will definitely address that at the end of the session. Although you are able to unmute yourself to talk, I would request that unless you are actively talking, you remain on mute just to limit the background noise since today's session is being recorded. As I mentioned, I do encourage you all to use the chat panel throughout today's session. So let's do just a quick test to make sure that everybody knows where that is. So if you could just enter in the chat panel where you're joining from today, you could enter a continent, a state, city, or even maybe an office building that you're joining from, so that we can get a sense of who all is joining from where in the world. While everybody enters that in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and just give a brief introduction on GBRI for those of you who may not already know. We are a privately owned online gamified education platform with a mission to make sustainability resources affordable and accessible to everyone across the globe. Located in New York City with a presence around the world, GBRI is a USGBC education partner and AIA education provider. We are also education partners with various other organizations, including the United Nations, the Collaborative for High Performance Schools, and the Rhode Island Energy Efficiency Council. We believe that a truly sustainable future must also be an equitable one where every human is treated equally and fairly. So with this, our mission is to make sustainability, health, and wellness available and affordable to everyone around the world. With hundreds of sustainability courses surrounding the topics of energy, water, LEED, net zero, green schools, energy modeling, health and wellness, just to name a few, Learning Hub at GBRI is your one-stop shop for all your sustainability education needs. All right, and before we get started, let me just check the chat, see where we have everybody joining from. I myself am joining from Texas, South Texas, so it has been very hot here these past couple of days. So I see we have some people from India, Canada, more people, another person from India. So we have lots of people from all over India. So I'm very excited to have you all joining us. So let's go ahead and get started. So this course is ideal for building professionals, students, or anyone that is seeking to learn the fundamentals of how sustainability can be applied to the built environment. In this course, you will be introduced to green buildings and green building rating systems such as LEED. And additionally, we will introduce you also to the LEED Green Associate Exam, which is what we're here to study. By the end of this course, you will be able to understand the fundamentals of sustainability in green buildings, explain the benefits of building green, identify the differences between traditional versus green building processes, learn about green building rating systems, specifically analyzing the LEED rating system, identify key components of the LEED certification process, and analyze the growth of the green building industry. And we have divided this course into 4 sections. So under section 1, we are going to explore the basics of sustainability. We will learn about green buildings under section 2. Under section 3, we're going to learn about the LEED rating system and LEED certification process. And then we also have a case study that we'll be looking at. And then under section 4, we are going to talk about the LEED credential exam for students and building professionals, as well as analyze the green building market and discuss why it's important to earn a LEED credential. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to look at world of sustainability. So let's see here. So it's hard to open a magazine, browse a website, or turn on the radio these days and not hear the word sustainability. And while there are many different definitions for sustainability, We're going to go ahead and take a look here at just a few today. And so the one that I'm going to go ahead and start with is most popular, and it was coined by the Brundtland Commission. And so while the modern concept of sustainable development itself can be derived most strongly from the Brundtland Report, we also see it rooted in earlier ideas about sustainable forest management dating back to the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe, as well as the 20th century environmental concerns. So according to the Brundtland Report, a sustainable development is any development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. The second definition we're going to look at today is by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. According to them, sustainability is based on a simple principle that everything that we need for our survival and well-being depends either directly or indirectly on our natural environment. Sustainability creates and maintains the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony that permit the fulfilling of the social, economic, and other requirements of present and future generations. And so while you can go type in sustainability in your search bar, you might find a different definition. I might find a different one if I were to do that. Essentially, all definitions for sustainability boil down to the underlying principle that we must meet our current needs without affecting the needs of future generations. So we must do so responsibly. And to continue our discussion on sustainability, sustainable development can be described in terms of 3 dimensions, domains, or pillars. And in the 3-dimension model, these are seen as the economic, environmental, and social aspects. Another way to look at this is through the concept of the triple bottom line, which focuses on people, planet, and profit. And the triple bottom line is going to be something that you need to know for your exam. So that's going to be important for you to understand what it is and why it's important. So many people believe the word sustainability only applies to the environment. And truly, the earth is a very important aspect of sustainability. However, to be truly sustainable, you also have to take into account the social and economic implications as well. And so that's where the pillars of sustainability come into play. And that refers to the crucial balance between the environmental, social, and economic factors within a product, project, or even a service. So an example of this would be if we have a forestry company that comes in, they want to clear cut an ancient forest. While doing so in the short term may result in great profits, that would be great in terms of economics. However, when you look at the ancient forest, that was probably a unique habitat for lots of different wildlife. And since it had been there for so long, the soil had specifically adapted to those trees. So by removing those trees, the whole system begins to crumble. The wildlife can no longer survive. The soil will begin to erode, leaving little or nothing to harvest. And so while in the short term, it may have been a great idea, in terms of economics, it was a great idea, it cannot survive over the long term and benefit all parties. So it is not going to be a sustainable model. Thinking deeply in terms of the 3 pillars of sustainability requires a systems thinking. So let's go ahead and take a look here at this triple bottom line, which again, important for your exam. The key aspects include economics, environment, and social responsibility. And to address these 3 aspects, progressive individuals, small businesses, and corporations are using the triple bottom line to influence their decision and measure their sustainability. This is a holistic alternative to the conventional bottom line mentality, which focuses only on profits and not so much the consequences. So let's go ahead and take a look here at each of these a little bit closer. Profit, which is the economic pillar, is going to involve making sure that the business makes a profit, but also that the business operations don't create social or environmental issues that would harm the long-term success of that company. The second aspect or pillar is people, and that is the social pillar of sustainability. The social pillar aspect of sustainability is going to focus on balancing the needs of the individual with the needs of society. So social sustainability is the idea that future generations should have the same or greater access to the resources as current generations, while also there should be equal access to those social resources within our current generation. Social responsibility really focuses on improving the lives of those with whom the company, or for our purpose, the building, interacts with. The well-being of a building's workers, occupants, community members, neighbors, and other stakeholders is a priority for the triple bottom line in the built environment. And the third and final aspect or pillar is planet, and that is the environmental pillar of sustainability. For this, organizations should really try to benefit the planet as much as possible, or at least do no harm and curtail negative environmental impacts. Environmental sustainability occurs when processes, systems, and activities reduce the environmental impact of an organization's facilities, products, and operations. And so now we're going to go just give you a little bit of an example to make sure you really understand that triple bottom line. And so we're going to have a clothing company. It is a made-up clothing company. But the people that are working for this clothing company are paid a livable wage. And because of that, they continue to produce quality products and develop their skills. The company also utilizes environmental friendly organic cotton, and they use non-heavy metal dyes, which means less water and soil pollution. So this is going to ensure that the company has a steady supply of high quality materials and clean water. And then for the profit, the company is going to profit by selling their superior quality gear, and they're going to have a steady and a loyal customer base because people trust their high value products and good ethics. So moving on, another term that you will hear a lot when exploring sustainability is CSR, or a corporate social responsibility. And companies big and small have CSR policies in place. And what these are, it's essentially a comprehensive set of sustainable business initiatives that facilitate a company's triple bottom line approach to operating their business. And something that we found interesting was there was an interview done with corporate executives on CSRs. This interview was done by Devin Thorpe, who is a Forbes magazine contributor. And what he found was there were varying responses among these corporate executives, but in turn, what he learned was that they really did find the CSR policies to be very beneficial. And so, for example, 51 out of the 59 executives that were interviewed believed that they had happier employees because of this CSR policy. And then another one of the questions he asked, 45 out of the 59 of those executives believed that they ended up with better employees, either as a result of attracting better talent because of the CSR policy, or just because their policy just in turn developed better employees. So you can definitely see there are benefits, not just in terms of the environment, but just in terms of their employee productivity as well. And so that is going to conclude our first section. That section was fast. I know our next two are going to be a little bit longer, but sustainability really has become a wide-ranging term that can be applied to almost every facet of our life on Earth. And this is true both on a local level as well as a global scale. And at GBRI, we really believe that sustainability is the capacity for something to endure over time. It's recognizing that the things that we do today will impact future generations, either positively or negatively. It's knowing that our children and our children's children will inherit what we do and build today. All right, let's get started here with section 2. We got a lot to cover here. So as we know by now, sustainability can be applied to a broad variety of topics and areas such as agriculture, transportation, the service industry, energy, economics, etc. And for the purpose of our course, we are going to see how we can embrace sustainability for buildings and infrastructure, or collectively the built environment. So buildings have a major role to play in sustainability through their construction, the lifetime of their operation, and patterns of development. Estimates for the US, this was according to a report that was published by the Urban Land Institute. This indicates that 2/3 of the structures that will exist in 2050 will have been built between now and then. So what we build today and where we build it is profoundly important. And so as we saw in our introduction to this course, building green is not a new concept. It's been there for a long time. So as design and construction professionals or as students, you may wonder why would we build green now, or what are the benefits of building green? So let's go ahead and take a look. The goal of the triple bottom line in terms of the built environment is to ensure that buildings and communities create value for all stakeholders. And so an example of this would be if we had an energy efficient building, it's saving the owner money, but it's making its occupants sick. That would not be something that we would want, as that's not sustainable. That's not something that we would want. Another example would be if we have a material that has a small carbon footprint, but it's made in a sweatshop or made in a factory that is polluting the environment there. That would not be sustainable. So let's take a look here at the definition of what a green building is and what it means to be sustainable. So green building can be a noun and it can be a verb. As a noun, green buildings are facilities which are environmentally friendly and consume less energy, water, and materials, produce less waste comparing to a traditional building, and offer a healthier environment for its occupants. This is something that, we want you to understand, that buildings don't turn green overnight. You can't just slap a fresh coat of paint on it and say this building's green. Building green is not an afterthought. It's really something that takes planning from the very early stages, and so something that needs to be taken into consideration very early on. As a verb, building green or green buildings is an ongoing process that are environmentally responsible and resource efficient throughout a building's life cycle. This is from the siting to design, construction, operation, maintenance, renovation, and demolition. The process of green building flows throughout the entire life cycle of a project, beginning at the inception of a project idea and continuing seamlessly until the project reaches the end of its life and its parts are recycled or reused. Building, living, and working in a structure that is responsibly designed and constructed, operated, and maintained can have measurable positive effects on your physical and emotional health, as well as the owner's finances and the health of the community and the environment. And one thing that I do just want to note is the term green building. You might also seen this used as a synonym for sustainable construction, sustainable design, and even high performance building. So whenever you see those terms, they're all essentially referring to the same thing. So why is sustainability so important in the built environment? Buildings, as we know, have a tremendous impact on our daily lives since we spend about an average of 90% of time indoors. The built environment has an immense impact on our economy, society, and our use of natural resources. There was a report done by the World Health Organization, this was done in 1984, and they estimated that 30% of buildings suffered from sick building syndrome, which negatively affected occupants' health and productivity. And so sick building syndrome, this might be something that is a new term for some of you. This is an important term to know. Sick building syndrome, or SBS, this was coined by the US EPA, and it is defined as 20% or more of occupants in a building complaining of discomfort and mental related issues that are linked to the time spent in the building. Some of these symptoms may include headaches, ear, nose and throat irritation, dry skin, itching, nausea, dizziness, and sensitivity to odors. These symptoms persist while they are in the building, but are quickly relieved when leaving. And so that's something that's important for you to note. Sick building syndrome will be referred to throughout, and you should know the 20% or more of its occupants, as that may be important. On the screen, you are seeing the social, economic, and environmental impacts of the built environment. And you may have seen some of these courses earlier, or you may have heard me mention them earlier, but they're really important for you to just really understand the importance. And so according to the United States Green Building Council, Green buildings account for 7.36 million jobs in the US and $531 billion in annual revenue in the building industry. You can also see that in terms of the environment, they save 40% on total energy use, about 38% greenhouse gas emissions, 40% of raw material use, and 14% potable water consumption. So I'm definitely hitting on all of those economic, social, and environmental aspects. You can definitely see the benefits. And there are many studies and reports that recognize the benefits of building green. Another one we're going to look at is titled The Costs and Financial Benefits of Green Building. And this was prepared by a Washington, D.C. based company named Capital E. It was prepared for California's Sustainable Building Task Force. And the advantages of green buildings are well documented in this study. And so there are a 30 to 50% savings in energy, 35% savings in carbon, 30 to 50% water savings, and 50 to 90% waste cost savings. And then just another study I want to just point your direction to, it was done by the GSA, and this was done just on their portfolio of LEED Gold buildings. But what it showed was that these buildings in their portfolio consumed 25% less energy, 11% less water, have 19% lower maintenance costs, and actually have a 27% higher occupant satisfaction. So that is really amazing to see, satisfaction numbers there. So in the traditional and design process, building systems are viewed as separate elements. Site, structure, design decisions, these are all done based on construction budget and/or schedule considerations. Changes that are made to the design in order to meet a certain budget or follow an accelerated schedule would not necessarily take into account the final performance of the completed building. The traditional building process, as you can see here, they are all kind of in their own little bubbles, and they're all working independently. And the process the steps that this process would follow begin with the design phase, then we would move to construction documents, bidding process, construction, commissioning, and turnover and occupancy. As they are all kind of there working separately in their little bubbles, in isolation, they really, while working in those, their areas, they're really just focusing on their area of specialty, not necessarily interacting with any of the other individuals on the project unless absolutely necessary. And so on a traditional building, this is why you may not see some of the savings that you see with a green building, because everybody is working isolated, not together. In contrast, here we see our green building process, and green buildings, they follow an integrated project delivery process, or IPD. And so you can see everybody kind of in this one bubble working together. And what an IPD does is it integrates all stakeholders, systems, building structures, and practices. In this way, the talents and insights of all participants are collaboratively harnessed into an integrated design team. The benefits of this process are the optimization of project results, increased value to the owner, reduction in waste, and maximize efficiency through all phases of design, fabrication, and construction. Additionally, this process ensures lower operating costs throughout the lifespan of the building because each system is optimally sized because team members have worked together and communicated throughout the whole process. The project phases of an integrated project delivery process are very similar to the conventional design, but there are a couple of additional steps, and that would be pre-design and recommissioning. And so for the pre-design stage, this is going to be the most crucial stage, and this is going to involve developing a clear statement of the project's vision, defining the green goals of the building, setting priorities, selecting the project team, researching any green technologies or strategies that may be implemented, and defining a green building budget, as well as reviewing any applicable laws or standards. Then we also, as you can see here, so we have, it's going to be the stages for a tradition or a green building, a green building or an IPD. It's going to be the pre-design, which is added here at the beginning as a new stage. Then we have design, construction documents, bidding process, construction phase, commission the building, occupancy, and recommissioning. This is the second added step here. And for the design phase, here, there are going to be some additional steps for an IPD. This is going to include developing a project budget specifically that covers the green building measures, tests, and select green technologies and strategies that will be implemented. You'll want to check costs on the strategies and technologies that may be implemented, as well as finalize design decision. And for the recommissioning step that was added as well, this is just to ensure that the building is actually performing and meeting the design expectations after the building has been occupied. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the costs associated with green buildings. I think that is probably one of the biggest misconceptions out there, is that the cost of green design, construction, and certification is significantly more than a traditional building. And this makes it one of the greatest barriers to the adoption of sustainable development. And while that is a big misconception, there are numerous studies and reports that demonstrate, although green buildings may incur an initial increase or a green premium as it's known, this premium is more than compensated for over the lifetime of the building in corporate financial returns, such as savings in utility bills, increased property values, and employee productivity gains. And so here is another study. It's done by Capital E as well. So for this, green buildings, on their study, they found that green buildings have a 0 to 2% increase in the final cost of their conventional counterparts. And this is something that will be recouped. They recoup 20% of their construction costs over 20 years. So, while initially maybe there might be a slight increase over the span of the building, it's definitely recouped with, receiving 20% of construction costs over 10 years. That is more than 10 times the original investment in those green features. Green buildings really are smarter, better quality buildings, and they need to be designed through an integrated process from the very beginning. This involves setting project goals early on and communicating them between all stakeholders. This is including architects, the engineers, the building operators, and occupants. I think that's something that's important to note is, you want to also not just bring in the architects and the engineers, but the people that are going to be maintaining the building and the people that are going to be occupying the building afterwards. It's important for them to know what green features are there and how to make sure that they're utilizing them to the maximum they can. So now let's have a look at green. So now that we've looked at green buildings and their benefits, you may wonder, how does one know or verify if a building is green? Unfortunately, there are many products on the market today that claim to be green in an attempt to sell something to someone with an environmental conscience. This is something that we call greenwashing, but this is where the role of a rating system comes into play. So I'm sure you may be familiar with other third-party rating systems or rating organizations. One that comes to mind is Consumer Reports. And there's also rating systems for your car safety, fuel efficiency. Many things nowadays are rated in some way or another. Consumer Reports, though, I thought was maybe one that everybody would know. They use a set of standards or criteria to rate the quality and performance of many consumer products. This can be from TVs to cars. So essentially anything that is out there, they have probably rated it. What they do is they test each product in exactly the same way so that you, the consumer, know which product is higher quality. Similarly to this, we have the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration. This is a third-party government verification branch. It was created and is run by the Department of Transportation. And what they do is they test the safety of all cars in the US. So I'm sure you've probably heard or seen the commercials where they have, 4 or 5-star safety ratings. Everybody, wants the highest safety rating possible. This is a safety rating that is given by the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration. All vehicles are tested in the same manner so that the safety rating is unbiased and uniform for each vehicle. And so here, similarly, green buildings have a rating system in the same way that our cars do. And so they're tested, by a rating system, which is a tool or a system that is going to measure the sustainability of a green building project. And this slide here just kind of draws the comparison between the CARS safety rating example that I just showed you and LEED. So just to kind of give you a better understanding. If you're not familiar with, the example I'm showing, feel free, any other examples that you might know or be more familiar with, feel free to use those in your studies instead of this one. But with this, you can see that LEED is the Green Building Rating System, which is developed by the United States Green Building Council. And the exams are then administered by GBCI. So they all kind of work in unison together. This is where, the parent organization, this is who administers the testing and does the verification. And this is the actual rating system that they're using. LEED is a third-party certification program that is now a globally accepted benchmark for the design, construction, and operation of high-performance green buildings and neighborhoods. And so that's one important thing is, LEED used to mostly be United States, and now it is expanded globally. This is something they've really done and worked very hard for under LEED before to make it more globally adapted. And we'll look at some slides here coming up on that, but something that's important to note is this is something that can be used around the world. So just like the CARS safety rating measures the level of just like the CARS safety ratings measured the level of protection that one would receive from a particular vehicle, the LEED rating system also has several different levels measuring the sustainability of a building. And so with this, the greenness of a LEED project is based on a 100-point scale with an additional 10 bonus points. And there are 4 levels of LEED certification. So you can see we have certified, which is 40 to 90 points. Silver is 50 to 59. Gold, 60 to 79. And platinum is 80 plus points. And so here on the screen, you can see an image. This is a LEED label with the points under each category. This is something that you might think resembles here a nutritional label. And so imagine you have this label on a building that tells you how green it is, just like we have the nutritional labels on a cereal box. While the food nutritional label describes the nutritional health through a measure of cholesterol, sodium, potassium, protein, a LEED certification, or really any third-party rating system, a certification is going to describe the sustainability score of a building through its energy and water efficiencies, air quality, as well as other impacts. So now that we know what makes a project green, I want you to think of some keywords that come to your mind when you think of green buildings. I want you to enter those in the chat. Feel free to enter any word that comes to your mind whenever you think of green buildings. And while you enter those in, I'll enter mine. My word I entered in the chat would be happy. I think of happy when I think of green buildings because green buildings make your occupants happy. So, and please feel free to enter whatever words come into your mind into the chat. Some of the words that you might be thinking of, or maybe that you entered, maybe included solar panels, or maybe green roofs, or low flow water faucets. You might be seeing some of the words that you actually thought of on the screen here. But as you can see, it can very quickly become a significant list. As we go on, we can continue adding and adding. It would become very crowded, very disorganized. And so unless we start grouping these similar issues into categories, it may look cluttered. What LEED has essentially done has grouped these different features into different categories. So you can see we have maybe location, site, water, energy, materials, and indoor environmental quality. And so with 100 different points to organize, this is exactly what LEED did. So LEED projects can earn points across 9 basic areas that address key aspects of green buildings. There are going to be 8 major categories in LEED. The first one is location and transportation. This rewards thoughtful decisions about building location. Sustainable sites. This is to maximize the sustainability of the building site that you select. Water efficiency. This is going to reward strategies that save on landscape water use and interior water use. Energy and atmosphere. This would encourage green energy development, save building energy consumption, and cut energy costs. Materials and resources. This is going to ensure that the best materials for the environment are used in the building, and also focus on the reduction of waste. Indoor environmental quality, or IEC, this is going to focus on ways to increase the productivity, satisfaction, and health of the occupants. Innovation in design, this really encourages project teams to discover new sustainability strategies that are not currently in the rating system. And regional priority, this encourages teams to address specific environmental priorities in the project's region. And so we'll learn a little bit more about this, but this is very interesting because basically what zip code you enter, that'll show you, what credit or what points you might be able to get based off of regional priority issues in your area. So one thing I do just want to point out is that LEED is not the only rating system for buildings. And so here's a list. We've included just a few. It includes LEED, but also other international systems as well. We're not going to obviously spend time talking about the other rating systems since we're here to study for our LEED exam, but we do want you to know that they are there, they do exist, and a lot of times these will work in kind of work together. So for example, LEED and WELL, that's something that they've really streamlined the approach for if your project is getting LEED or WELL certification. If you wanted to pursue both of them, they've really streamlined that process of being able to do that. So a lot of these will work in harmony with each other. You should understand that the goal of all of these rating systems is to embrace sustainability and incorporate it into buildings. And so when you think about it, the broad environmental categories that we looked at earlier, these are all going to be avenues for buildings to incorporate sustainability, sustainable design, construction, and operation practices into its whole life cycle. And so more or less, the categories that you see listed with LEED, these are going to be categories that you will find likely across majority of these rating systems. So like water, energy efficiency, things like that. And so there are lots of misconceptions when it comes to green buildings. One of the most popular I mentioned earlier was that green building costs way more. It's definitely not worth it. Here's some other misconceptions that I want to address as well. And so one of them is that I can't make a difference. If only I change, it's not really going to make that big of a difference. But the amount of consumption in the world around us makes us feel this way, makes us feel that there's nothing that we as individuals could do that would possibly make a dent. But that's not true. And I really, this is something that every individual person can do, regardless of whether you're a LEED professional or not. And so let me go ahead and just explain here with a quick example. So if you take a shower, the average shower head flow is about 2.5 gallons per minute. If you were to change that to a high efficiency shower head, your flow would be about 1.6 gallons per minute. And so we're going to use 5-minute shower as an example. I know that may be for some people not feasible to take a 5-minute shower, but we'll stick with 5 minutes. But 5-minute shower, if you were to make that switch to a high efficiency shower head, by doing so, you would save about 4 to 5 gallons of water per day per person, or per day per shower, I guess I should say, because you might shower more than once a day. If we took that for a whole year, we're going to do 365 days. If you were to make that change, you would conserve over 6,500 gallons of water. This is just one person, one household, and it can make a big difference. According to the US EPA, if we retrofitted 1 out of every 100 American homes with water efficient fixtures, we could avoid approximately 80,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. That would be the equivalent of removing 15,000 cars from the road for 1 year. So that's quite a big number, and it's really a very easy fix. Usually changing a shower head is something that somebody can do at home on their own, no need for a plumber. But this is something, you know, everybody should explore. Simple little things like this around your home can definitely make a big impact. Another one related to energy consumption, I'm sure we all know, but just whenever you leave a room, if you turn the light switch off, that's something that can drastically help as well with energy conservation. Another popular misconception is that building products have to be recycled to be green. And so I have a few examples. So if you have a new window, somebody might think this cannot be green, this is not going to be sustainable. But if it is placed in an area where it allows the most daylight to come through, while it keeps the heat out in the summer and keeps the cold out in the winter, it could be green. With this, you really have to look at the overall effect or the big picture. And so, which in this case, the energy efficiency, it's definitely helping in terms of that. So while it may not be recycled, it can still be, you know, something that is energy efficient. Another example is salvage doors and window frames. This is also an example of green materials. So by reusing a material, we are able to reduce our demand for virgin materials, thereby reducing our carbon footprint. So that would be a good option. Products with recycled content. This is also something that is green, as it eliminates the extraction or the need for 100% raw materials. However, with this, you do have to be careful. You should not assume that just because a product is made from recycled content that it's green. Again, we refer to, you know, some of the stuff we mentioned earlier, greenwashing. That's one way somebody might try to make somebody think it's green. Another thing you have to be careful of is that, you know, a product may be made from recycled content, but if it is then shipped across the world to be assembled in a facility that pollutes, and then it is packaged maybe in like a petroleum-based packaging, you have to really think about the amount of resources that is being put into not only the product itself, but the transportation of the product, packaging of the product. And so if you were to look at just the fact that it traveled across the world, the facility pollutes, the packaging isn't great, you know, this would not be a green product. Even though it is made out of recycled content, it would not be considered really the best product to use. So this is something that, you know, as we kind of go through the course, you'll be able to learn strategies needed to identify what products are really green. And so we'll look at that a little bit later on in the course, but it really depends on, you know, where you're getting your building materials from, how far it's made, how it's being transported. You really have to take that all into consideration. Also, something that I want to note is that LEED only certifies buildings. And so you may find products that falsely advertise that they are LEED certified. This is not something that is done by LEED. However, on the other hand, we do have Energy Star. Energy Star certifies both buildings and products. So some of the products you might have seen if you go into a, you know, a store, appliance store, you'll see the Energy Star label. So you'll see it on TVs, washing machines, refrigerators. a variety of different electronic devices. And essentially you see that label on a product and you know that it's going to save you energy compared to a non-Energy Star product. They also, like I said, certify buildings. And so Energy Star certification is a plaque that can be earned by buildings that earn 75 points out of their 100 base score, or if they are in the top 25 percentile of existing buildings in terms of energy and water use performance, they could also earn that plaque as well. All right, so we're going to go into our case study. I don't see any questions. If you'll have any questions, feel free to enter those into the chat. Like I said, I will keep my eye on that. But let's go ahead and dive into our case study. This is one of my favorites. I would love to visit this place. And I think we have somebody here from Canada, and I think this is actually from Canada. So I'm curious if maybe they have heard of it or been there or are nearby. But this is Dockside Green. This is really an excellent case study, which some people call one of the greenest developments in the world. And this project really sums up everything that we've talked about so far in terms of the triple bottom line, sustainability, integrated design approach, and LEED. So Dockside Green is a 26 building redevelopment on a 15-acre former brownfield industrial site. It was built in phases as a mixed-use community of 1.3 million square feet and is home to more than 2,500 residents. This project adapted an integrated design approach, which included all stakeholders, consultants, and they also included developers, contractors, architects, engineers. They included city council, community members, and utility companies. So they really went a step beyond, and really wanted to include community members, city council, and that's great to really encompass everybody and get everybody in. So let's go ahead and take a look here at some of the strategies that were used. So this project team aggressively pursued synergies to achieve sustainability goals. This project has multiple closed-loop systems where the output for one process serves as the input for another. So for example, we have rainwater that is captured for domestic use and domestic wastewater, which is used for landscape irrigation. And one of their project goals was to become the most sustainable community in the world and a global showcase for successfully integrating triple bottom line sustainability at a community level. Dockside Green was also the first community to target LEED Platinum certification for the entire community using both LEED for individual buildings as well as LEED neighborhood developments rating system. Dockside Green is host to renewable energy technologies, including on-site windmills and solar panels, which enable the development to be carbon neutral. Each residential unit also has a real-time meter showing energy and hot water usage alone with associated carbon emissions. And then this data also can be easily compared to the development as a whole or to their unit's history. So really a lot of data information that you're able to access and see to kind of compare. The project used strategies such as on-site biomass heat generation, on-site stormwater and sewage treatment, strict water conservation measures, and provisions for alternative transportation. This project also has advanced water and waste handling systems, including, again, like its own sewage treatment plant, gray water recycling facilities, along with sophisticated infrastructure and landscaping for handling stormwater, all of which is captured on site. And so in terms of energy efficiency, you can see they have received a 50% potential reduction in water consumption. For their heating, they have 25% reduction in energy use and up to 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Fresh air circulation, very important. 100% of the home's air comes from fresh air outside, so there's not any air being recirculated, making for a much healthier indoor environment. And I have actually included the link. You can access that in the handout if you want a little bit more information. They have lots of great systems in place. Here is the community picture of the community of all the different locations. And so in order to minimize their solid waste disposal, the project designed and implemented active recycling programs as well as education programs. There are more than 1,000 native trees that were planted along with installing green walls and green roofs to help restore natural features, habitats, and biodiversity. To accommodate a diverse mix of residents, 31% of the units were developed for affordable housing. And in addition, the project also includes townhomes, condominiums, studio apartments, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And so the project really has embraced a wide range of ages and income brackets. The project team also created open spaces between buildings and provided 100% fresh air through the heat recovery ventilator. They also employed new urbanism and smart growth principles in design to foster healthy lifestyles. There are amphitheaters, parks, greenways, as well as access to waterfronts, indoor fitness facilities, and a connection to a galloping goose trail that all provide opportunities for social interaction. And you can just see this place, it looks gorgeous. You know, everything seems pretty close, like you may be able to walk or bike to a lot of these areas. The results of this, you know, the result of this exceptionally energy efficient facility with low greenhouse gas emissions is all thanks to, you know, the project team and really the integrated community approach that they took, bringing on all stakeholders, community members, council members. You know, that really helped to ensure that they were able to achieve the LEED Platinum certification while also creating new jobs, supporting local suppliers, as well as providing educational opportunities. And that is going to conclude our second section. Let's go ahead and move on to our third section. I hope so far that we've made a case for sustainable buildings and the use of a green rating system. But now let's go ahead and explore LEED, which is one of the more popular rating systems and what we're here to prepare for today, the exam. So let's talk about USGBC. This is kind of where LEED all came from. So the founder here of LEED. So they were founded in 1993 as a nonprofit. USGBC is a community of leaders that work together to make green buildings available to all. They also work with education partners like us to create courses like this one, and also courses on other sustainability topics, as well as other you know, LEED exam prep material as well. USGBC is responsible for providing educational opportunities to learn about sustainable design, the development of the LEED rating systems, as well as offer LEED-based educational research programs. So we've included the USGBC logo here on the screen. If you are a part of a member organization, you may have a different logo that you are familiar with, but member logos, those are designated for national USGBC members. And so one thing that you should note is that in terms of like the membership levels, an individual would not be able to become a member organization unless they actually had like a company that they were going to be placing forward, as there's different fees and things that are involved with becoming a member. If you have your individual account, that's something that is completely free, so you don't need to worry about that there. So currently USGBC has over 15,000 member organizations from every sector of the building industry. And if you are an individual, like I said, you can't become a member organization. However, you can join a local USGBC chapter. So if you're interested in being more involved, you can look for your local USGBC chapter, and usually they have lots of different great opportunities there. Sorry, hold on, I missed a slide. All right, so then in 2007, GBCI was established as a separately incorporated entity with the support of USGBC. And what they do is they administer the LEED exams. This is something that they do independently to allow for a balanced, objective management of the credential exams. GBCA also administers the certification for LEED projects. And in addition to LEED, GBCA also administers project certifications and professional credentials and certificates for the different systems you see here. We have WELL, here, GRE, SB. So here is a little bit of the history of LEED. So USGBC was founded in 1993 as a nonprofit, community leaders. The first LEED pilot program, also referred to as LEED version 1, was launched in August of 1998. After extensive modifications, the Green Building Rating System version 2 was released in March of 2000. This rating system was called the LEED Green Building Rating System for New Commercial Construction and Major Renovation, or LEED-NC. It's quite a mouthful. And so as the LEED rating system evolved and matured, the program undertook new initiatives, including working with international communities, addressing new building types. And so in 2007, we had GBCI, who was established as a separate entity, of course, but with support from USGBC. And since version 1, LEED has really undergone many changes and has evolved quite a bit into what we have in 2009, which was LEED 2009, or LEED version 3, as it was popularly known. And then we have the newest version of LEED, which is LEED version 4. This is what you would use to register a project. Also, any professionals or students planning to take the LEED exam, this is the version that you would be tested over. LEED has come a long way since its inception in 1998. LEED has influenced market leaders, assisted architects and engineers design and build better buildings. And if you take a moment to think about it, what was once harder in the previous versions of LEED is now the market standard. Previous versions of LEED have already had a significant impact on the built environment. The rating system has transformed the market, and in the process, it has undergone many changes between its different versions. LEED has come a long way indeed, broadening the focus from an individual project to a part of a larger single organism. Continued market transformation was the basis for LEED v4 development. So the highest levels of LEED certification, which were originally intended as reach goals, these are now becoming more and more mainstream. This represents successful market transformation. In order to continue that transformation, though, LEED needs to continually improve. And so the latest rating system is a result of many revisions, 6 rounds of public comments, and 23,000 comments. LEED version 4 was created by the people. Now we're going to go ahead and explore LEED's fundamental goals. What do we want LEED projects to accomplish? That is the central question that has driven the technical development for LEED version 4. As a market transformation tool, LEED engages building project teams in a way that connects strategies to a defined set of goals, or things that we ultimately want LEED projects to accomplish. LEED v4 is designed to have a specific set of impact goals. And like the rest of the rating system, these goals have evolved from previous versions of LEED. What USGBC tried to do before this was to shift the underpinning philosophy from a do less bad to a do more good scenario. The version 4 system goals are intended to be the things that we want LEED projects to be good at. Instead of thinking about reducing the negative impact associated with water consumption or the conservation of water, we want the buildings to actually think about protecting and restoring water resources, not just doing what's bad. So listed here, we have our 7 LEED system goals. These are LEED v4 system goals. And so in addition to shifting from a do less harm to a do more good mindset, LEED has expanded the scope of its goals to truly encompass the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. So there's a couple of things that you'll see different in LEED version 4. You'll see highlighted and enhanced are the issues that are related to human health, as well as issues related to community quality of life. These are things that are very important. So I'm really glad that we're now seeing this integrated as part of the rating system. But here we'll go through reduced contribution to global climate change, enhance individual health, protect and restore water resources, protect and enhance biodiversity and ecosystem services, promote sustainable and regenerative material cycles, build a green economy, and enhance community quality of life. At its core, the LEED v4 program builds from the foundation and alignment of LEED 2009. It focuses on increased technical rigor, integrative process, and improved user experience. LEED v4 has improved in terms of increased technical rigor in an effort to better tie the rating system to improved environmental outcomes, which I was explaining on the previous slide. Another component I think is important is the integrative process. So emphasizing an integrative process helps projects take an integrated approach to project management and get the most out of LEED by starting key processes early in the project planning. LEED v4 rewards a more integrated approach to project management. We'll talk about this maybe more in detail a little bit later, but there is a new credit for an integrative approach, and there are also points allocated as well as new credits that underscore the importance of starting early and making sure that the whole team is working toward a common goal. That's something that is now also rewarded in LEED version 4. Integrative process is something that occurs throughout the project lifecycle. It is collaborative, and that's working together and making sure that that continues on throughout the entire life cycle of the process, from the design all the way to operation and occupancy of the building. It starts as early as pre-design or conceptual design. And if we were to look at the integrative process, we are looking at it across the entire building process. This is both across the planet and people aspects. And so it's just really important. You want to make sure that this is improvement that is across a variety of different dimensions, from the environments, the site, the water, energy, materials. All of these things play an important role when you're we're using this integrative approach. And so our next important question is, what types of buildings does LEED address? So LEED started largely with office buildings, and then it moved to educational buildings, and then they started to see what they call partial scale projects. This is like a split between a core and shell and an interior design and construction project. Then they also saw existing building operation and maintenance, and so applying those different types of projects to residential and healthcare. What they did was they really saw that there was a need for a rating system that didn't just focus on one project type or one building type. They really saw that there was a need for something that focused on multiple different types of buildings, and not just within the United States, but all across the world. They saw other countries were coming up with their own rating systems, and so they saw that there was a need there as well. So what LEED has done with that in mind, they have put together a system that works for all buildings at all phases of development, from new construction to existing buildings, as well as different building sectors, from homes to hospitals, even to like corporate headquarters. There are many different types of buildings that are covered now under LEED. So what you're seeing is a swing of the pendulum back to one rating system that includes adaptations for the different building types. So adaptations for things like schools, healthcare, retail, as opposed to separate rating systems for each of them. Making it align is something that has made it fundamentally much more user-friendly. And so while LEED v4 represents one rating system, it actually supports 21 different building types or 21 different building adaptations. And so with the 2009 rating system, LEED started to address the unique needs of specific building types. What LEED v4 did, they really expanded upon their previous works to address the specific and unique needs of particular spaces. And so these needs might be driven by occupants that a facility serves, or it could be by a regulatory requirement, or maybe just a unique resource need. But by recognizing the unique need and specific space types, LEED has removed all of the barriers, moving us closer to market transformation. So there are 5 different rating systems that address 21 different building types that you see here. This list is impressive as it, may be complicated. I want you to understand that LEED is more appropriate for more project types now. So let's go ahead and look here at each of these. We have LEED, BD&C, and you can see this is the name, BD&C, and then these are the different types of projects or adaptations that would fall under that. So BD&C, or building design and construction, this is going to apply to buildings that are being newly constructed or going through a major renovation. This would include new construction, core and shell, schools, retail, hospitality, data centers, warehouses, and distribution centers, as well as healthcare facilities. IDNC, interior design and construction. This would only apply to the interior of a building. This is somebody who does not have control of being able to do anything on the outside. This applies to projects that are complete interior fit outs, and this could include commercial interiors, retail, or hospitality. Then we have EB O&M, existing buildings, operations, and maintenance. This applies to existing buildings that are undergoing improvement work, or maybe little to no construction. This could include existing buildings, schools, retail, hospitality, data centers, warehouses, and distribution centers. We also have LEED for homes. This is going to apply to a single family home, low-rise multifamily, which is 1 to 3 stories, or a mid-rise multifamily, which is 4 to 6 stories. LEED ND, or neighborhood development. This applies to new land development projects and redevelopment projects containing residential uses, non-residential uses, or a mix. Projects can be at any stage of the development process, from conceptual planning to construction, and this includes plan and build projects. So under V4, you can see there are those 21 different adaptations. These were done very intentionally, and they really focused on where things are different. They're different, but where they are, where things are different and where they are now aligned, that's something that makes the V4 rating system much more simplified. And so it's only different really where it needs to be. You really just need to learn the one LEED rating system, and then there will be the different adaptations that are almost like added on if it needs to be there. So they really try to simplify things, not having you learn all of these different rating systems. They try to use what they could across all of the different projects. And so how flexible is LEED? I mentioned earlier that it was originally something that was popular in the United States and has now expanded globally. And so I did just want to show you how flexible it is and how LEED can be used for international projects, as this is a very valid question, very important one as well. So one way that LEED is a flexible rating system is that it now is a global rating system, positioning itself to stay ahead of the global trends. And so with the development of LEED v4, it was clear that the rating system needed to address its global audience. LEED is now being used in more than 150 countries and territories around the world. The number of projects outside the US has continued to grow each year. And so here we have a list of the top 10 projects. This is something that USGBC releases every year. But this is their list of top 10 countries. They have one for outside of the US, and then they also have the states, the top 10 states within the US. So that's always fun to look at. But this is our top 10 countries and regions. And this was for 2021, but we had mainland China. So it has a little over 1,000 projects. And then it shows the square meters. Canada coming in at second, 205. And then you can just kind of see we have Mexico at 47, Taiwan, China at 31. So definitely see it is being used worldwide. Let me see here. So now that LEED is being internationally recognized as a benchmark for what it is to have a green building, they also have the LEED International program. And the rating systems represent global consistencies, a regional approach, and local outreach and support. So what this does is it really helps it to be more applicable to projects worldwide than ever before. Something else that LEED is doing with V4 is they considered the US market and international markets when putting together requirements. And so in the rating system, US-centric language or standards or requirements and definitions, those have been replaced wherever possible with globally acceptable alternatives. Additionally, local equivalencies are also allowed in lieu of US-based standards. So they are really trying to make it much easier for international teams. The LEED reference guide, which is used by projects, now also includes international and global data and examples. And so this provides tips on common issues that may be faced by international projects. And the web-based reference actually allows for regional guidance to be added as local equivalencies are identified. And lastly, what they have done is they have all measurements and calculations shown in both SI and IP standards to represent the different systems that are used around the world. So when you're taking your exam, whichever you're used to, you can just stick with that because on the exam itself, it'll show the units in both of those SI and IP standards. So just all you have to do is remember the one that you're most familiar with. You don't need to remember both. And so with the new LEED V4's global adaptations, can we expect an increase in number on international LEED projects? So this was something that we asked one of our certified instructors. His name is Sean O'Brien, and he is a project manager at Tetra Tech. And so Sean provides operations support, marketing, and business development services to clients in Qatar and Northeast US regions. According to Sean, USGBC has worked hard to develop LEED V4 to adequately address a global audience. A new level of flexibility exists in LEED V4 to allow international and regional equivalents and or reference standards and codes. Incorporating this level of flexibility will allow LEED to be more comprehensive with internationally green rating systems that exist in the international arena, such as Qatar's GSAS or Global Sustainability Assessment System. And there's also BREEAM as well. And so the revisions included with LEED V4 make it much more acceptable option to international clients. And then also LEED certified buildings are currently the most superficial level that is allowed in Qatar. And so one thing that he did let us know was that the state of Qatar has mandated all major developments and government buildings be built at minimum of LEED silver. So that's a pretty amazing thing for Qatar to be doing. I can imagine they will see great benefits from that. So now that we have a fairly good understanding about the LEED rating system, Let's go ahead and look at the certification process and what a project has to go through to get LEED certified. So let's go ahead and start with the rating system. And one of the very first questions you may have is, what rating system should my project use? And so with this, project teams have 5 different rating systems to choose from. As we saw, these are the rating systems. As we know, there's different project types underneath this as well, but this would be the main rating system. There's 5 of them to choose from. And when applying or when wanting to use a rating system, if you are not sure, project teams should use the 40-60 rule to determine which rating system to use. And this is something you want to remember. This is something that could be on your exam, the 40-60 rule. What the 40-60 rule states is that if the rating system applies to 60% or more of the project team should use that rating system. And when figuring this out, the entire gross floor area of the LEED project must be certified under a single rating system. So when using this 40-60 rule, you want to make sure you're using the entire gross floor area of that project. Our next question is, are there any eligibility requirements for projects to pursue LEED certification? And yes, there are. These are called minimum program requirements, or MPRs, also something very important for you to know. These are essentially a set of requirements which must be met for every project in every rating system. The MPRs are the minimum characteristics or conditions that a project condition that make a project appropriate to pursue LEED certification. So if you don't meet these, you cannot pursue LEED certification. There is no project that has not met their MPRs and are certified. So these are essentially like a prerequisite before you can even try to meet LEED certification. These requirements are foundational to all LEED projects and define the type of buildings, spaces, and neighborhoods that the LEED rating system is designed to evaluate. And so the MPRs serve 3 goals. The first is to give clear guidance to customers. The second is to protect the integrity of the LEED program. And the third is to reduce challenges that occur during the LEED certification program. And so our first one, we'll take a deeper dive into the first MPR here. So LEED projects must be in a permanent location on existing land. The LEED rating system is designed to evaluate buildings, spaces, and neighborhoods in the context of their surroundings. A significant portion of LEED requirements are dependent on the project's location. Therefore, it's important that LEED projects are evaluated as permanent structures. Locating projects on existing land is important to avoid artificial land masses that have the potential to displace and disrupt ecosystems. So in order to comply with MPR, all LEED projects must be constructed and operated on a permanent location on existing land. No project that is designed to move at any point in its lifetime may pursue LEED certification. And this requirement, again, applies to all land within the LEED project. So our second MPR is that a project is required to use reasonable boundaries. Defining a reasonable LEED boundary ensures that projects are accurately evaluated. And so the LEED project boundary must include all continuous land that is associated with the project and supports its typical operations. This would include land altered as a result of construction and features used primarily by the project's occupants. This could include hardscapes like maybe parking lot or sidewalks, and any septic or stormwater treatment equipment and landscaping. Those all must be included in the LEED boundary. The LEED boundary may not unreasonably exclude portions of the building, space, or site to give the project an advantage in complying with credit requirements. In addition, the LEED project must accurately communicate the scope of the certifying project in all promotional and descriptive materials and distinguish itself from any non-certifying spaces. And so essentially what they're trying to avoid here is, we know parking lots they can definitely have a major, play a major role on a project's ability to get certification if they don't have certain things in place to help with like heat island effect. And so, you know, they don't want a project leaving off their parking lot that may be a huge parking lot. They don't want them leaving that off in order to achieve LEED certification. To make it fair, everything that your project is going to use, or that may be a support service to your project, that all needs to be included in your LEED boundary. And then we have our third MPR, which is there's certain project size requirements. The intent of the third MPR is to require LEED projects to have a minimum floor area for accurate performance assessment. Minimum floor areas for each rating system are listed here. So you can see we have BDNC, which is 1,000, O&M 1,000, IDNC minimum 250 square feet. And then LEED for homes is the project should be denied as a dwelling unit by all, defined as a dwelling unit by all applicable codes. And then for ND, projects should have at least 2 buildings that are no larger than 1,500 acres. So now that we're aware of the minimum program requirements under LEED, let's move on to the next step here. So the certification process is going to begin with project registration. This usually happens before the pre-design meeting if the project owner is certain about LEED certification. If the owner isn't sure, then this is something that can be done after the pre-design or even after the design meeting. Registration, though, is the first step towards LEED certification. Your final certification is something that will occur after the project is built. So how much does it cost to register your project? Registration is a flat fee that is paid upfront at the time of registration. The rates are based on the date of registration. And something to note is that pre-certification is something that is available to LEED core and shell projects for an additional cost. And you may wonder, you know, what are LEED core and shell projects? Why do they have this, you know, special pre-design certification that they can do? It is basically, so the core and shell, it is designed to provide a set of performance criteria for certifying the sustainable design and construction of developments and core and shell buildings. So broadly defined, a core and shell construction would cover the base building elements, such as the structure, envelope, and building level systems, such as HVAC systems. The LEED core and shell system recognizes that the division between the owner and tenant responsibility for certain elements. And so that makes it easier when trying to pursue that. So I mentioned the pre-certification that is unique to core and shell. So what this does is just provides a formal recognition by GBCI that the owner or developer has established LEED for core and shell certification as a goal. It gives a core and shell building owner and developer a marketing tool to attract potential tenants and financiers recognize the benefit of LEED. So essentially, pre-certification would, you know, come in earlier on before even the design process, but this is saying, hey, this is what we plan on doing with this project, plan on achieving core and shell certification, and they will give you almost like a preliminary stamp of approval. That stamp, if you do not meet those criteria at the end of the whole project, then that would be revoked. Obviously, you wouldn't have that anymore. But this is just like a preliminary approval they give you, saying this company plans on doing this. This allows people, the owners, to market that to any potential clients. So really, it's like a marketing strategy. It allows them to, before the project is even built, say, hey, we're going to get this certification, or we're going for this certification. Of course, the end result is really the final thing, whatever they determine at the very end of your project after they've gone through and certified it. Once it's been built, that, of course, is the final determination. But this just allows building owners and to try to market it to tenants before the actual building is built. And so to register a project, you would go to LEED Online. This is where you would register a project, you would upload credit documents, you would manage your LEED projects. Right here, everything that needs to be done would be done from the LEED Online portal here. So LEED Online is a web-based portal where you register your projects. Once registered, project teams manage their projects through the LEED Online interface. LEED Online contains credit templates, forms, and also allows teams to upload their documentation, such as photos, site plans, floor plans, site renderings, all of that. But it allows them to submit that for review through this portal. LEED Online also contains the scorecard for your project, which lists all the credits that the project is attempting or that earned once you go through that process. And this just helps teams to keep track of their LEED certification plan. And the LEED V4 project team must choose a LEED project administrator to manage their LEED Online portal. And so that person would become the point of contact between the project and USGBC, as well as perform the tasks of inviting team members to LEED Online, assign responsibilities to team members, as well as submit the project application to GBCI for review. One thing I do just want to note with LEED Online, this is a little bit different than the previous versions of LEED that they use for their projects. And so with LEED Online, you do have to be a little bit careful because even though there is a project administrator, technically anybody who is on the project team can go through and submit things and do things. So while it's the job of the project administrator, LEED Online under version 4, they don't actually limit the members' roles. So you definitely have more flexibility and freedom there, which is great. You also have to be careful not to accidentally delete anything that maybe somebody else has added or do anything that might not be what you want to do. So under the previous section, I showed you the various different credit categories that projects should earn points under to earn LEED certification. Here they are listed again. LEED projects can earn points across 9 basic areas that address the key aspects of green buildings. There are 6 main categories, which are location and transportation, sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, and IEQ, indoor environmental quality. Innovation in design and regional priority are bonus categories that are available on all of the rating systems. And integrative process credits do not fall under a particular category as it lies by itself. Integrative process, it really overlaps and touches upon every other credit category. A lot of synergies there. So I won't go into each of these today. However, in our upcoming sessions, we will be diving deeper into each of these. So each of these categories that you just saw, they are going to correlate to a LEED credit, which if you fulfill will earn you or your project team at least 1 or more points. And so for example, if you choose a building site that is within half a mile from a public transportation section, you will earn points under the location and transportation credit. And so the phrase credit means a non-mandatory project characteristic or a measure or quality or value. So under the LEED rating system, a credit is something that is optional. You need to pursue it to earn points. However, there may be some credits that your project does not want to pursue. So within the LEED rating system, you do not have to pursue all credits and all, you don't have to pursue all the credits under all of the categories. So that's important that your project team will go through and select the credit which the credits that they feel they can actually earn points under. No single credit is mandatory. Credits are selected and then pursued by your project team. But each credit for the rating system is going to include information like the intent of the credit, the requirements of the credit, any environmental or economic issues related to that. It will also show you the related credits, so maybe any synergies that may be there, any applicable reference standards, ideas and strategies for implementation, time and team information, calculations needed, documentations required. So whenever you go into the credit, it'll give you essentially everything you need to know to pursue that credit. You should also note that local, state, and federal rules and laws always take precedent over LEED requirements and reference standards. So if a credit says to do X, and then credit says to do X, but then you review your applicable laws or codes locally and it says that you can't do that, you should not do that. You will always follow local, state, and federal laws. Now, prerequisites, these are different than credits because these are mandatory in the projects pursuing certification. And so a prerequisite represents key criteria that define green building performance, and therefore all LEED buildings are required to fulfill all prerequisites. Failure to meet any of the prerequisites will render the project ineligible for certification. And so while you don't actually receive any points for the prerequisites, they are still mandatory. You won't actually start receiving points until you start completing the credit categories. And so an example of a prerequisite would be sustainable site prerequisite 1, which we'll dive into that in the upcoming weeks. But for this, you should create a construction activity pollution prevention plan. So in order to meet this prerequisite, a project should prepare and implement a construction pollution prevention plan, sorry. And that's something that they need to document throughout the construction and have a plan for. So that is one of the prerequisites. All projects have to do that. Similarly, LEED projects are required to reduce potable water use by 20% as compared to a baseline. That is also another prerequisite under the water efficiency category. But again, just remember, you're not going to receive any points for completing a prerequisite. However, it is still required. And so we've talked about the credit categories, prerequisites, and credits. So depending on which phase a credit is pursued and documented, we would categorize these LEED credits into either design credits or construction credits. And so these credits are mainly pursued and documented either during the design phase or during the construction phase. And so these will include strategies which could be documented by either, but if it is going to be done during the design stage, then we would refer to that as a designer responsible credit. Credits that are mainly pursued and documented during construction phases are called construction credits. These include construction strategies which need to be documented at the end of the construction phase. So an example is construction waste management. This credit cannot be completed and documented until obviously all construction on the project is done. So you would need to wait until the project has been completed before you could submit all of that documentation to them. And so here's a summary of all the credits and prerequisites under the BDNC rating system. This is as applicable for new construction projects. You will see a similar list like this for all 21 different project adaptations. But students preparing for the exam, you may find this handy to kind of remember all of these different credits and take notes as needed. It's important to know that for your LEED Green Associate exam, you do need to understand all of the credits and prerequisites, like what they are, what maybe their intention is. However, you do not need to actually memorize like the points that are associated. So you're going to want to, maybe reference this. It's important for you to, be able to understand these are location and transportation credits. These are indoor environmental quality credits, and just kind of understand, each of these. The next thing that you need to understand in the LEED certification process is a CIR, or credit interpretation request. And so what happens if a project has a question on a LEED credit? Every project is different. Sometimes, it may be difficult to understand something from the guide, because the guide really tries to provide a, one size fits all answer for everyone, and that may not necessarily be the case. So when you come to a stage where maybe you have a particular question that is very specific to your project, you can use a CIR, or credit interpretation request, for clarity. You can submit a single question, and this can be submitted anytime after project registration. And so, as I mentioned, oftentimes the reference guide might not specifically address something. So this is where GBCI has created the CIR process. And so if you have a question about a credit, or if you're unsure if the design option will count for a specific credit, you can submit this, and then you will receive an answer from them regarding whether or not it will or won't work. It's important to understand there is a separate fee for submitting a CIR. So this is something that could increase your project's budget, especially if you're having to submit multiple. But it is $220 each. So you should really only submit it if you are really having trouble and you can't find your answer anywhere else. And then once you submit it, a project team will receive a ruling within 2 to 5 weeks. That's going to be posted on the committee posts credit ruling page. And so one thing that you do want to know is that a CIR ruling does not affect the existing requirements of a credit within the rating system. And so if you were to ask a question about, well, can I just, maybe instead of meeting this minimum of 500, could I just meet maybe 400? This CIR ruling is not going to override anything that is in the rating system currently. It's not going to lower any thresholds or add any extra, benefits in there that maybe you have. This is just simply to gain clarification on something. So it will still go by whatever is in the guide. You should also note that no points or credits are going to be awarded just based off this CIR process. This again is just used clarification on a single issue. So just to kind of sum this all up here, LEED projects have to satisfy the 3 requirements for certification, which are the MPRs. They must comply with all prerequisites and achieve a minimum number of points per desired certification levels across the 9 different categories. And if in the case that clarification on a specific credit is needed, a project can then use the CIR request. Okay, so getting your project certified is going to be the last step in the LEED certification process. The project may decide to submit either one standard combined review or 2 separate design and construction phase reviews, or a split review for approval. And so for this, certification is only awarded, of course, after the construction is completed. So even if you do the split review where you're submitting the design and then the construction separately, you obviously would not receive certification for a project until after construction has been completed. For this, for the split review, usually it takes about 20 to 25 days. There are also expedited review options available once you submit a project for review. 10 to 12 days is the expedited number of days. You should note, of course, expedited reviews are an additional fee, so everything terms of, speeding things up, is going to be an additional fee, so you have to take that into consideration. Once the initial review is complete, the team will then have the opportunity to present additional documents or comments for clarification along with a final submission. Once a final review is complete, GBCI will make a decision on the total number of credits achieved and the certification level. The projects may appeal GBCI's final decision and resubmit documentation if required. The certification fees are something that are based on your project's rating system and size. And so while we talked earlier about the registration fee being a flat fee, the actual certification fee for your project, that is going to be dependent on project rating system as well as size. And this is something that is calculated and paid when the project team submits documentation for review in LEED Online. And those fees for either the standard or split review cover both the preliminary and final reviews as well. So once you pay those fees, there shouldn't be any additional fees you need to pay. And so for projects bigger than 50,000 square feet, certification cost per square foot is available. The cost of that would also exclude any parking. They're not going to charge you for that. And then also appeals for credits and formal inquiries such as CIRs, those are still available. Those are an additional cost as well. And here you can see this is a list of the fees associated for certification. They have this list on their website as well. So of course, when you're going to work on a project, you'll want to refer to what you see on their site, as it'll be most up to date. But you can see a project registration, 900. The number in parentheses, this is for if you are a member organization, you will receive certain discounts. So the white number would just be for a project team that is not a USGBC member. 1,200 for registration. Then you can see they charge per square foot for projects bigger than 50,000 square feet. If you wanted that expedited review, an additional 10,000. So you can see here all the different fees. So based on the number of points awarded after the final review, a project would earn one of 4 rating systems, which I showed you earlier. And once the project accepts the final certification, it may apply for the LEED plaque that shows the certification level. And projects can display the plaques outside their buildings to showcase their hard work. LEED projects may also apply for a LEED dynamic plaque, which is a little bit different and unique. The LEED dynamic plaque is a building performance monitoring and scoring platform for LEED certified projects that provide annual LEED certification and global benchmarking data. So this plaque displays the LEED performance score, which reflects the measured performance of the building across the 5 different categories. And so essentially it's taking the data, sometimes it's real life data, and you can see that it will then show you based off of the data that it's receiving, how well that project is doing based off certain categories. This plaque makes the invisible actionable, the invisible actions and offers of the interaction within the building on multiple levels. And so it's nice to have this kind of interactive platform or plaque because the visitors can actually see their performance. Occupants can also provide feedback on their experience, and the owners and building managers can view trends to make informed decisions on how to optimize the building, benefiting the people, planet, and profit, of course. And so here is just the overall look of the phases of the certification process that we discussed. You can see the process begins when the owner selects the rating system and registers the project. The project is then designed to meet the requirements for all prerequisites and for the credits that the team has chosen to pursue. After documentation has been submitted for certification, a project goes through the preliminary and final reviews. The preliminary review provides technical advice on credits that require additional work for achievement, and the final review contains the project's final score and certification level. And again, this decision can be appealed if the team believes that some additional considerations are warranted. So you may be wondering, can a project currently under construction pursue LEED certification? And so the answer for this would be most likely no, just because there are certain prerequisites that the project team should have satisfied and kept a record of. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there was the construction activity pollution prevention plan. So, if you have already started construction on a project and then you decide you want to go back and try to get certification, that could be a little bit troublesome because you do need to have that proper documentation to receive that or to meet that prerequisite. And so here I'm just going to show you one more case study. I know we have about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to try to wrap things up here. So we have the Harworth's Beijing showroom. This is a landmark Parkview green building that has been recognized as the world's first certified LEED project under the LEED V4 rating system V4 beta program. And so the location proved to be a crucial factor in capturing many of the credit points in this LEED V4 IDNC project. The iconic Parkview Green was chosen as the base building, which in itself is a LEED Platinum certified building. And this was certified under the LEED 2009 rating system. The base building is home to a boutique hotel, commercial offices, and premium retail. It is conveniently located to provide tenants with access to quality transportation and bicycle facilities. And they did receive a LEED Platinum for that Parkview Green. And they really focused on going above and beyond, I feel, for some of these features. But we have 60% reclaimed materials, according to the furniture manufacturer. They were able to decrease modeled energy consumption by 59%. They also were able to further ensure energy efficiency through the use of Energy Star equipment for 90% of the equipment and appliances. So we know that Energy Star is going to help there with the energy efficiency. On-site gray water treatment is combined with water efficient fixtures, which helps reduce potable water consumption by 53% compared to the code baselines. Fresh air ventilation was also, exceeded the required minimum. And so they were able to exceed that by 30%. All of the interior paints and coatings met the VOC limits of the California Air Resources Board, or CARB 2007. And all of the adhesives and sealants applied also met the low VOC and chemical content requirements. Additionally, to ensure a low VOC indoor environment, 93% of the furniture in the space is either Green Guard certified or has been transferred from an existing showroom. So they really focused on low VOCs there, really focused on indoor environments. And so this project earned 71 out of 110 points. See over here is the actual LEED facts card. You can see IDNC. They received certification in September 2013. They met gold with 71 out of the 100. And then you can see which areas they really focused on. So integrative process credits, they got 2 out of 2. Water efficiency, 12 out of 12. Regional priority, 4 out of 4. So they really did utilize to meet what they could. And so here is just some additional images. I already went over, they used 60% reclaimed materials, the 59% reduced energy use, as well as reduced water use. And here is the actual LEED scorecard for the program, which again just shows, what they met. They got different points there, just to shows the breakdown. All right, so this is going to conclude section 3. Let's move on to section 4 here. And so LEED projects throughout the world have demonstrated the benefits of taking a green design approach that reduces the environmental harms of buildings and restores the balance of natural systems. So the green building portion of the construction market is rapidly expanding. I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, but this is some newer data that I wanted to show you. This is from 2001's World Green Building Trends Report. And this is done in partnership with USGBC. And this report has a lot of really great data. So I went ahead and linked it here on the slide. You'll have access to this in the handouts if you would like to view the full report. But as you can see, from 2021, 2024, and 2024, it's expected that more than 60% of projects would have some level of green building activity going on, which is an increase from 28% in 2021. So what is driving the green building? There are factors that are, these are the factors that are driving the dramatic green building market growth. And this includes strong market demand, high cost savings for businesses and taxpayers, public health gains from green buildings, steady gains in the percentage of large non-residential, commercial, or institutional projects that are green, federal, state, and municipal mandates and policies, increased property values, low rental vacancy rates for LEED certified buildings, lower operating costs, as well as healthier buildings. And you can just see, here were some of the questions, top triggers for increasing green buildings. You can see it's kind of interesting. They broke it down into the owner or investment, section versus architect, engineer, and contractor. So of course, the owners had the priority of lower operating costs, while for the architects, engineers, and contractors, that was actually the least of their concerns. So you can see just based off of what role you play in a project, you might have different priorities. And so for architects, client demand was really the driving factor there. So now let's go ahead and explore the credential exams under LEED. So the LEED professional credential and exams, again, are administered by GBCI. And just something to note here is that buildings become certified, not individuals. So whenever you hear somebody say, I'm LEED certified, they're definitely not, unless they are a building. So LEED certified projects or buildings, that would be the correct term. Individuals become LEED accredited. So you would be a LEED accredited person, LEED accredited once you have passed your exam. And firms can become USGBC national members. So if you are a firm that wants to become a member, you would join the national membership. There are 2 levels of LEED credentials, the LEED Green Associate, which is what we are here to prepare for, and then the LEED Green Associate. Sorry, LEED Accredited Professional. Sorry, we're here for Green Associate. Next level would be LEED Accredited Professional or LEED AP. So LEED AP would essentially be the second tier of the credential. LEED Green Associate is just establishing that you have the fundamental baseline knowledge for being a building professional in this industry. The LEED AP would take it a little bit step further as you have to kind of pick a specialty. You have to decide whether you want to specialize in BD&C, which is building design and construction, operations and maintenance, IDNC, all of the different rating systems that we saw earlier, 5 different ones, you can actually specialize in each of those. So when you become a LEED AP, if you choose to do that, you would pick which rating system you wanted to actually kind of specialize in. And then above the LEED AP is LEED Fellows, and these are highly accomplished individuals that are nominated by their peers for their contribution to advancing the field of green building. So the LEED Fellow is not actually something you can take a test for. This is something that you will be nominated for. And so who is LEED accreditation for? So really, you can see here, it is for anyone that is interested in a career in sustainability or just that is interested in learning about, what role sustainability plays on the environment. For the exam itself, there are no eligibility requirements. However, exposure to LEED and green building concepts through education or volunteering or work is recommended. And as part of our exam prep, we do share the LEED project stories with you just so that you kind of get a better understanding of the systems in practice. So you don't need to worry about that. We kind of help you with that in our exam prep. All candidates must agree to the disciplinary and exam appeals policy and credential maintenance requirements. They must also submit an application audit and be at least 18 years or older. And for a LEED Green Associate, credential requirements would be 15 CE hours every 2 years. And out of those 15 CE hours, 3 of those need to be LEED specific. And they can be LEED specific to anything. It can be LEED specific BDNC course or IDNC or homes. When you're a LEED Green Associate, any LEED specific course will count towards your specific requirements. Once you become a LEED AP, that changes. You have to actually get specific credits within your rating system, your specialty, but for LEED Green Associate, any 3 LEED specific hours will work. And then, just, the steps. So you would log on to the USGBC website. If you do not already have an account, you would make an account. You would then want to make sure that your name matches the name on your ID that you're going to present at the testing center. It's very important as you are required to show some sort of ID, and that ID needs to match what they have on file. And then you would select the LEED Green Associate Credential Exam and then follow those instructions for the registration. Once you actually pay for your exam, you can then schedule it at that very same time, or you can wait and schedule it. You have 1 year from the date that you pay for your exam to actually take it. And they do have translation aids available in Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, and French for the LEED Green Associate exam. And if you have any special testing accommodations that are needed, they do honor those. You can select that during your exam registration process just to let them know. So once you register and pay the fee, like I said, you have 1 year to schedule your exam. Exam fees are non-refundable. And you can access your exam scheduling through your credential accounts. You go through your USGBC account. That will then direct you over to the Prometric site where you will actually go to schedule your exam. And so to take your exam, you would either take it at a Prometric testing center. They are worldwide, so there is almost guaranteed to be one very near you. Or you can also take it online through their ProProctor system, which something that kind of came out during the COVID era. And while it seems great, we have received some feedback from students of ours, not specifically for the LEED Green Associate exam, but for other exams using the same system, and it can be challenging. And so I would just recommend, you do want to do that, make sure that you go online, you read the requirements. There's certain things like you can't have any windows in a certain area, your room has to be completely empty. So you just want to make sure that you can meet their strict requirements there. The exam format of these exams are all developed and then updated annually. And so exams this year, we believe the dates are July 17th through July 31st, in which they are going to be updated. I'm still waiting for confirmation on that from USGBC, but whenever you are going to schedule your exam, just plan that you may not be able to take the exam through July 17th through July 31st. And so these exams are developed by a global network of subject matter experts, and they meet the specifications of that have been laid out for them by USGBC. The exam is going to assess a candidate's ability to recall, as well as apply and analyze. So it's important for you to understand whenever we're talking about something that you can, recall how it's used, understand how it's applied, and then also be able to analyze it. Recall items are going to assess the candidate's ability to recall factual material that is presented in a similar context to the exam references. Application is going to provide the candidate with a novel problem or scenario that the candidate can solve using familiar practices or procedures during the exam. And analysis is going to assess a candidate's ability to break the problem down into components to create a solution. So the candidate must not only recognize the different elements of the problem, but also evaluate the relationship or interactions of these elements. The LEED Green Associate exam is going to consist of 100 randomly delivered multiple choice questions, and it must be completed within 2 hours. The test specifications for each credential exam is the result of data born from the job task analysis survey, which was conducted earlier in the years. And so in this job task analysis survey, respondents were asked to assign an important rating to various tasks that were deemed necessary for a newly credentialed LEED professional to do for safe and effective practice of LEED, and assign a rating to statements that identified what they needed to know in order to do those tasks. So as a result of the survey, there were 2 main areas that were identified, which is knowledge domains and task domains. Unlike previous test specifications, which focus solely on knowledge domains, your LEED v4 test is also going to focus on task domains. And these are, test domains identify the skills to address what does a LEED professional need to do, while knowledge domains address the concepts related to what does a LEED professional need to know. So be prepared to be tested over both of those. And so in the LEED v4 test specifications, knowledge domains are reflected under the different credit categories. And so you can see I've listed them here. We have, LEED process, which is going to be 16, which is the most points that you can, or most questions that you can expect. Most of the questions would be from this category. Project surrounding and public outreach, 11 questions you can expect from this category. So you can see, and this kind of helps you prioritize how you study. If maybe you're struggling in one area, if it has 7 questions, it's going to be a smaller category. So you may not get as many questions for this particular category. So, and then again, these are the task domains. This kind of, just reflects what is necessary to perform LEED safely and effectively. You don't need to memorize this. This just kind of goes through what a task domain is. You can always refer to this in the on-demand material. So on the day of the exam, as I mentioned, there are going to be identification requirements. So you will need to make sure that the name that you registered your exam for meets your ID that you're going to present to the Prometric Testing Center people. And you can use an unexpired ID with a signature. It must have a photograph that looks like the candidate, and it must also show an expiration date. So some examples would be maybe a government issued ID or a credit card with a photo ID that has a signature. So if you're not sure, you can always check with the testing center before your exam to make sure what you're submitting would be acceptable. And once you have completed the exam, a score of 170 or higher is required to pass. Your exam score will actually be displayed on the screen at the end, so you'll know your results right away. And then within 72 hours, your exam results are processed and updated on your actual USGBC account. So as soon as you pass, you can begin using the title of LEED Green Associate, and you can put that on your email signature or wherever you would like to add that. For CE requirements, again, for LEED Green Associate, you must have 15 CE hours every 2 years. And for that, if you are needing assistance with that, we do provide a wide variety of courses to choose from. So for the actual exam prep material that you have access to, this is what you would receive. You're going to have 5 live online meetings. This is first of them. You would also have access to the on-demand modules or the recordings of the sessions so that you can go back and review them as needed. Study guide, flashcards, and memory charts, practice questions. We have over 700 practice questions for each of the different sections. So, like location and transportation, you would have a section quiz that specifically covers those questions. And we have that for each of the categories. You also receive simulated mock exams. So these have been timed and set to give you the feel of the actual exam, as well as instructor and peer study support. And then, as always, we do pass our exam prep We do cover our exam prep with our 100% guarantee that you will pass your exam on the first try. So as long as you're, following our meetings and following our roadmap, we guarantee that you will pass. So just some insider knowledge here. So for the actual exam, you do not need to know how many points are in each credit or how many points each credit can earn you. However, you do need to know how many points you need to earn in order to become a certified LEED Silver, LEED Gold, or LEED Platinum project. You also need to be familiar with the key terms that are listed in your flashcards. Key terms are very important. Understanding what they are very important for this exam. You also need to familiarize yourself with the credits across all of the different rating systems. So as I mentioned, you don't need to have an in-depth knowledge of them, but you do need to understand. We recommend some memorization methods. You can use acronyms. You can take advantage of our flashcards. Those will help you to memorize as well, or just read, watch, and listen, then repeat. And so just some tips and tricks that we recommend is that you learn the terms and definitions first. And so that's why I'll show you what is expected for you to do after the sessions, but the flashcards are one of the things that you are going to be reviewing after today's session. So learn those key terms, learn those definitions. They're going to be very important. And then from that, you can build your foundation in green building basics upon that. Whenever you're taking your practice exams, you will have one of them that you need to take after today's session. Whenever you're taking those, make sure that you are taking them over and over again until you score at least 80% or higher. And your practice exams will have answer explanations. And so even if you get the answer right, it's really important for you to review those explanations just to give you a better understanding. And so here this week, we covered Introduction to Sustainability, LEED, and LEED Green Associate Exam Overview. So just a couple of things after today's session. If you have not already joined our WhatsApp study group, I would recommend you do so. The link to that is actually going to be in your on-demand account. It'll be one of the first things that you see there under the Zoom links. Join our WhatsApp study group if you haven't already. Just gives you a little bit, better of a connection to me. Of course, you can always email or leave a comment on, the course page itself, but WhatsApp is a little bit quicker way to communicate. I want everybody to ensure that they have access to the on-demand material in their account. If they do not, please let me know. I will enter my email address in the chat, and you can go ahead and email me if you don't have access. Everybody should have access to that. Also, if you have not already, create a USGBC account. It is free to do. And this is optional depending on how well you're feeling. We recommend scheduling your exam at the beginning of the session, but scheduling it for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks after the live session ends. The reason that we suggest this is that it just helps you to stay better on track. I know it's easy for life to get busy and for us to kind of push things off to the side. If you have an exam date that is set and scheduled, that kind of helps you to keep better on track. So we recommend scheduling right now and scheduling it for after the session, anywhere 2 to 4 weeks, but that is completely up to you guys. You will also study your key term flashcards and review our study guide, taking notes as necessary. The study guide essentially goes over everything that we went through in today's meeting. It is just a text-based version. So if you don't think you need to review that, that's fine, but it's there if you need it. I know everybody has different learning styles. But you do want to review the key term flashcards. Those are very important. And then you will also take the section quiz for Introduction to Sustainability and LEED. We'll also see that located in your on-demand account. So with that, that is going to conclude today's session. I hope that you all were able to hang in there. I know I went a little bit over, so I do apologize for that. But if you have any questions, now would be a great time to ask. You can enter them in the chat. You can come off mute and ask them. Go ahead and feel free. Now is the chance. Study guide. So let me Let me go ahead and pull up the link, Chris. Just 1 second here.
Yeah, thank you for pulling that up. I didn't see it in the online area that you gave us the link to.
Sure, let me just pull. So this, let me zoom in. Is everybody able to see the website? This would be where you go to access all of your on-demand material. You're all able to see that? Okay, I'm going to assume y'all can. So this is the on-demand portal. This is where you will come to access all of your material. If you scroll down, this is all of your content. So here I see somebody asking about the WhatsApp study group. This is where you would join our WhatsApp study group. This is the roadmap here. This is going to be very important. This will kind of lay everything out for you on what you're doing after each week. And we also have some day of the exam tips as well. For the actual study guide, we have included it down here. So that might be a little bit confusing. I can actually move it to the top if needed. But this is where your study guide will be located, and this is where your flashcards will be located. So these are your study guide if you want to utilize this. This is an online version. If you want to actually download it, you would just come here. You're going to click this little printer. You want to select print all pages and then print. And it's not going to print. I promise it's not going to print out 200 pages. But whenever you do this, it will pull up the option here for you to save as a PDF. So you can see if you wanted to print, you could, but it also gives the save as a PDF option. Our flashcards, again, like I said, these are going to be important. Same thing, if you want to download them, go ahead. Same thing here with the print all pages, and it'll give you that option. So these are actually going to be the credit flashcards. I want to point out the very first page, it is going to be blurry because this is just a sample page. But once you go to the other pages, it will be more clear. Down here, these are our key term flashcards. These are the key terms that I was telling you, you need to make sure you understand. So these are going to be listed here. And then I mentioned the, the quiz that you need to take after today's session. So that's going to be right here under practice quizzes, under module 1. This will be the quiz that you complete before next week's session. Once I get the recording of today's session finalized, I'll get that uploaded. That will actually be added right here. So whenever I get that added, I'll actually message in the WhatsApp group. That's another added benefit. If you're in the WhatsApp group, you'll know immediately whenever I update something. But today's recording for today's session, this is going to be added here under the week 1 section. So if you want to review that later, do so here. But this will be the material that you refer to throughout the entire session. And like I said, as our weekly sessions are added, you'll see those added here. But if there's any other questions, please feel free to send that in the chat or come off the microphone.
Felicia, one more question up. And maintaining the LEED GA, if you wind up getting a LEED AP, do you wind up having to maintain both of them, or does that take over at that point, the AP?
That is a great question. So once you become a LEED AP, you will no longer have the LEED Green Associate requirements. So essentially becoming a LEED AP kind of trumps becoming a LEED Green Associate. So once you become a LEED Green Associate, you would then need 30 hours. And 6 of those have to be LEED specific. So that would be your only requirement.
And the rest of those courses can be like inspection related or just anything that's kind of building science or...
Absolutely, absolutely. So your general hours, there are not a lot of requirements there at all. A general hour could be anything. It could even be project participation. You can earn credit for that. Or if you have a publication that you've worked on, you can earn credit for that as well. But the general hours, yes, you don't have to have a lot of, it doesn't have to be LEED specific in order to count. So you have a lot of variety there. If there's any other questions, feel free to answer them, or like I said, come off the microphone. I'm happy to hear from you all. Great, I guess that is it. If y'all do not have any other questions, I will go ahead and conclude today's session. I thank you all so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. If you have not already committed to our program, I hope that you will do so after today's session. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye-bye.